the depths of hell could have forged a diamond this special?
Alright, what's up, y'all? We are back. So I got a crazy story to tell you guys. It just happened, so it's still fresh. So let's get into it. Pulled up to my shipper this morning, and I got a load of lumber I'm supposed to pick up. I get there about 6:45 because I had to stop off, grab some diesel and some DEF, and so I get there about 6:45. There's like, you know, there's quite a few trucks in front of me, but not all of them are there to get lumber. They got different machines for different departments, so, or different material, I should say. So I get in line, I give the guy the paperwork. He's like, all right, cool, you're good to go, we'll call you when you're ready to get loaded. So I'm like, all right, cool. 2 hours goes by, and the lot attendant comes up to my truck with some paperwork, and he's looking at the paperwork, looking at my truck, and I was like, what's the paper say? And he's like, oh, no, it's not you, it's not you. I said, is it lumber? And then he just like walked away. I'm like, all right, cool. So I guess it's definitely not me. And he goes, yeah, well, they said it was like the last truck, and you're the last truck in this aisle, so, you know, they, you know, I don't know what they're talking about. So I was like, all right, cool. So he leaves, and then he comes back like an hour later, and he goes, hey, you never wrote your truck number down on the paper. And I said, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And he shows me the paper. He goes, is this your trucking company? And I go, yeah, except the last name isn't spelled with a T. So they spelled Stafford. So they got the whole name wrong. You know, I can understand why he's confused. He's not in the office. You know, they just told him to check on it. And they were looking for me over an hour ago. So I follow another guy to go get loaded. And then he like disappears to go find the lumber. Then the lot attendant comes back, and he goes, hey, I got two newses for you. That's what he says. I got two newses for you. Which one you want? I said, well, I'm assuming it's good news and bad news, so let's start with the bad news. He goes, yeah, they said that your pickup number isn't right, so we can't load you because we don't know what your order is. And I'm like, so how y'all let me get checked in and the order number isn't correct, right? I'm like, all right, seems legit, right? So then I call, oh, and then the office calls me. So I go, all right, you know, check this number. They're like, yeah, no, that's the number we got. That's not right. So I was like, oh, all right, it might be this number then. I give him that number. He's like, nope, that's not it either. So I hang up with him. I call the broker. Broker's like, try this number. So then I call the office back. And the office is like, nope, that number's not working either. So then I had the office call the broker. They figured it out. Cool, no problem. So then they sent a different guy to come load me. Not only that, but the lumber that I'm supposed to get loaded with, I'm not even in the right area. So now I got to follow a different guy to go get loaded. Okay, cool, no problem. Follow the guy to go get loaded. He starts loading me, and then because I don't know what's on the work order until I see it. So he goes to load me, and he got some 16 footers on the headboard, only 3 of them. So he got 1 and then 2 that are double stacked. And I'm like, hey, you got 1 more to put on top to like even it out? And he just like nods and then like takes it off and then puts it on a different part of my truck and then puts some like 8 footers up there. I'm like, all right, cool, it is what it is. So he got 8 footers back to back. I'm like, all right, cool, no problem. So then the lot attendant comes back up to me and he goes, hey, we don't know if we have the rest of the lumber to fulfill this order, so we're gonna see if we have it in a different area. So I'm like, okay. So I follow the guy. I'm like, all right, well, I gotta strap down this load first because I got double stacked lumber on here and I'm not leaving until I strap it down, you know? So I strap it down, I crank down on it, it's ready to hit the road. I follow the guy back to the office. Then they tell me to wait there because the guy with the forklift is going to check to see if they have the lumber in a different staging area. Yeah, I must have waited for like a half an hour. I called Nicole. She's like, thank you for the anxiety. I'm like, I still gotta drive. You know, this is going to upstate New York. I'm like, I still gotta drive all of this way. You have anxiety? Yeah. Okay. Right? So then the forklift operator comes back after like, I don't know, like I said, about a half an hour. No lumber on his forks. So I'm like, oh man. And then he goes straight to the office. I'm like, oh man. So then I go to the office. I'm like, hey man, what's going on? And the guy in the office, he's like, hey, we can't find your lumber. As a matter of fact, we don't even know if we have the lumber. I'm like, don't have the lumber? What? That's crazy. That's so crazy. And they're like, yeah. So we called the receiver and they won't settle for any other cuts. They want what they ordered. So the lumber that they ordered, basically they won't take any substitutions. So I'm like, great. He goes, maybe you could call the receiver to, you know, put a little fire under them to see if they will accept a different cut of lumber. And I'm like, well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna call the broker. So I called the broker, explained to her, very, very nice lady, very, very nice, very understanding. At least to me, that's what it seemed. And she was like, "Oh my God, you or I shouldn't have to be dealing with this." And I'm like, "I know, but I'm the one that's actually dealing with it." So, you know, I'm like, I told her what happened, and then just as soon as I hung up with her and she went to go make a phone call, they apparently found the lumber and they started loading me with the lumber. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I get out the truck, go to talk to the forklift operator. I'm like, hey man, did you find the lumber? Like all the lumber? He goes, yeah. He goes, it's back over there. I'm like, all right, so I guess should I follow you? He goes, you don't have to. At this point, I've already been here for over 4 hours. And I'm like, yeah, I'll follow you. So I follow him, and my exit's coming up. So I follow him, and he goes and loads the rest of the lumber, and then they got the inspector. She comes out, starts checking off the lumber, and then she goes, the two bunks that are at the front of the truck that I had already strapped down wasn't the right lumber. So then he's already on the other side of the property by the time she checks it and finds that error, and she had to call him back over to take that lumber off. And I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. So he had loaded, when he had loaded the rest of the lumber on the back part of the truck, there was trash on top of the lumber. Like, it wasn't like garbage, but it was chunks of wood. And I'm asking him about it, and I'm like, you know, first and foremost, I'm like, hey, would you mind moving that bunk to the back so it could be 4 on the tail end and then 3 in the middle to kind of even out the weight and get more weight on the tires? And he's like, oh, I think it'll be fine. Coming from the guy who loaded loose lumber on the truck. Come on with these exits. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm sorry everyone, give me 1 second. I just had to take like 3 exits at the same time. So he had loaded the lumber with loose chunks of dunnage or, blocks on top. Then I had to climb up 2 stacks of lumber on top of my trailer to go throw it off the truck, because if the wind were to catch that and it blows off my truck and it hits somebody or kills somebody, that's bad news bears. So I had to climb up, toss the garbage off the truck. I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. Then, obviously the inspector finds out that he loaded 2 of the wrong bunks of lumber, and those are on the passenger side headboard. So now I gotta unstrap the whole front of the truck that I strapped earlier. Jeez. That I strapped earlier to that I basically strapped down. I'm like, this is forever. So I got there at 6:45 a.m. and I left at 12 p.m. And the receiver closes or stops receiving at 4:30. So just my luck, right? Just my luck. So that's how my day went. But yeah, anyway, how's your day going? Hope it's a lot better than mine. Leave it down in the comment section. And thank you guys for watching the channel. Thank you guys for all the love and support. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Stay good, stay safe. Later.